what would make great content on Instagram and Instagram and TikTok, and then write the song. He's like, don't write the song and try and figure out the content. He's like, figure out the content and then write the song. And his example was like, I don't know if he actually did the song, but he's like, I know I can juggle lemons. I know that would be good content. Somebody seeing me trying to juggle lemons. So he's like, I'm going to write a song about lemons. And for me, that was like, wow, this is a real perspective shift. What's
Hey,
up, Finn? Good to see you. It's
you too.
been forever.
All right, here we go. First episode.
First episode.
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about doing some long form content. I feel like whenever we chat, we always chat and get really deep and nerdy about music. I always feel like other DJ stories need telling. You know, like you get on and you see famous DJ stories, but there are hundreds of DJs who are being successful but never heard about or grinding away for years. Like we could see how they're doing. We could do that kind of thing. No filters, no fluff, just people who care about house music.
Can we have some fluffers? No fluff, but fluffers?
Yeah, no fluffers. um, so I guess that's why I thought it'd be interesting to start a podcast or a discussion where we could chat about those things.
I love it.
What got you into DJing?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I'm gonna have to ask you that question too. What got me into DJing? You know what it was is what really tipped me over the edge was I have a really close group of friends in Toronto, and they had pioneered this daytime dance event called Soul Sundays. Is that right? Soul Sundays? Yeah. And it was initially like a backyard dance party, and then it kind of became part of this larger street festival in Toronto. And I was so inspired by the community that they were bringing together through music. I thought I would love to be part of something like that. But I had
Mhm.
moved away from Toronto and I was living in Oaxaca, Mexico. And so, just on a whim, I decided to launch a Soul Sunday in Oaxaca. And I had this beautiful kind of like backyard, and I had a whole group of friends that were really into music, expats and locals. And I just talked to a couple of my friends and said, "Yeah, do you want to help me throw a dance party?" And they were down for it. And so yeah, we had a very like humble start with like barely any gear and like laptop DJing, but we had a great group of people show up and people loved it, and we barbecued and we had a wonderful time, and it just became a series, this kind of Soul Sunday Oaxaca. And ever since then, I had kind of this recognition that yeah, music could be this kind of like amazing vehicle for bringing people together and just building community. And I hadn't really experienced that before, so just stuck with it and went deeper and deeper into the music. But yeah, how about you?
So true. With what was your first kind of intro to like what gear did you first get your hands on, and like is that what your friends were using at the time?
Yeah, I think we were literally DJing off our laptops. There was this guy from Spain, I'm gonna forget his name now, who was really into DJing. And he had some of those like tractor small devices. They weren't full controllers. Like one of them was, I guess, for effects, and one of them was for like maybe it was
Yeah.
for queuing and stuff. So he was actually DJing at a club in Oaxaca. And so I didn't really know anything about controllers before I saw him doing that. And then I went down the controller rabbit hole for a while. You couldn't really get a lot of great gear in Oaxaca, so whenever I would go back to Canada, I would pick up some stuff. So I think I started on tractor with like some kind of a tractor controller, and then you know I was just actually a few years ago, when did I move here? 6 years ago, when I moved to California. I was DJing more regularly, and a lot of the people that I was DJing with were using CDJs, and so I just kind of kept an eye out. And there was a local DJ who was selling his whole setup, much older CDJs, but they took USB keys. They were like CDJ 850s. So they
Yeah.
also took CDs, but they took memory sticks. And so I bought his mixer and his 850s, and that was basically how I learned. And the nice thing about that was they didn't have any sync. You couldn't sync them, so it was a little more like trying to play vinyl, I guess, but with USB keys. Yeah, and I mean now we've got CDJ 3000s here in the studio.
The CDJ hundreds, I guess, never had. Did they have BPM counter?
The CDJ 850s will tell you what the BPM is. Yes, they will tell you what the BPM is. So you can try and visually match it up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
How about
I
you?
mean, yeah, wildly different story. I was I was 13. Me and my friend used to do like BMXing and like half pipe riding, and that was who we were. We were just, I guess, yeah, skater kids, BMX kids. And then I feel like I need to go and ask my friend this. One of my best friend at the time, I used to sit next to him at school. And one day he just came home and he was like, for my birthday, I've told my dad that I want some turntables and we're both going to be DJs. This is like um, August 1993. And what he got is he got a mixing console. I've got a picture of it on my website. It's a Citronic dual turntable belt drive with a mixer all built in. It's kind of got wood round the sides, and he got that with like 3 vinyl. And for some reason, I remember some kind of like Carl Cox compilation. We don't have any of this anymore. And so we're just, two kids hanging out in our bedroom, listening to like Pete Tong on Radio 1, Essential Mix, and being like, okay, I've got to do that. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think the first thing we did is we bought two of the same record. You play them both and you mix them back to back to back. And
Yeah,
because
hell
you don't
yeah.
have to worry about BPM because they're both the same tempo.
Yeah.
But one turntable will not necessarily be identical to the other, just it's analog. So there would be some variance in it, and you get that first like touch of like, oh my God, I got to figure out speed. And then, we'd just sit for hours just trying to work out how to beat match. There was no
Yeah.
YouTube. There was no instructions. I don't even think in Mixmag or DJ Mag there was any like how-to tutorials. It was all about club nights and getting you to go out. So that's kind of how I started. And I've I've always embraced new technology. So whatever new piece of kit comes out, I'll always try it. So like when you say, oh yeah, Traktor, I DJ Traktor controllers, I DJ DVS vinyl, I had
Nice.
the CDJ 500, then they made the 100s, which were kind of cooler, and then you had the 800s, 850s. I never used the 850s. Then you had the thousands, two, three.
Yeah, I guess that was maybe a lucky break that I got into it a bit later, but it's funny you talk about that early stages. I remember a friend of mine, Mason, if I'm not getting this wrong, he was a great DJ. I mean, as a selector, I mean his taste was impeccable, but he would go to parties and he would bring two iPods. That was like his thing way back in the day. He had two iPods. I mean, I probably that didn't even know that mixing was a thing because I've just heard Mason DJ and he would just have these two iPods and he would somehow,
Selecting.
I don't know how he routed the audio. I don't remember him having a mixer, but like somehow
Yeah.
he managed to just DJ off these two iPods and I was just like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." But yeah, the idea of long fades and stuff, I don't really think I knew about that. I was going to shows. I saw Plastic Man when I was very young and I was going to shows, but I don't think I was obsessed with the DJ at that time. I think I was just there about, with my friends. We were just there to
Yeah.
dance and
It
be
was more
silly. Yeah.
Alex, two famous DJs from the past called Alex P and Brandon Block DJ'd Space Ibiza back in the 90s, and they were notoriously not that good at mixing, but their tune selection was so good that you almost don't care.
Yeah.
Now we do because the technology's there to make it all seamless. But back then, all that really mattered was the next song was so good. And if your selector ability was that, yeah.
You were golden. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I think what you and I have talked about before and notices, and this has been written about it at length, so it's not kind of novel information, but it feels like there was a time when it was the parties were more about the music and it was less about kind of DJ culture or kind of like cult of DJ personality. And I don't like, when I went to shows, raves when I was in my, teens and 20s, like I probably knew who the DJ was, but it's not like I was standing there watching the DJ. I don't remember seeing them at all. I just remember like my friends trying to come up with goofy new dance moves and yeah, we were just all there having a good time and I don't remember us really giving a shit about who the DJ was in the sense of like they weren't there to entertain us.
They were there to create the vibe in the room.
Totally. And to bring the people together that were there for for
Yeah.
that event. Yeah.
Uh, uh, I had a camcorder back in 2001, and I didn't know I'd shot this footage. I had the pod is just here. No, I had the reels, and I just not transcribed them because the camcorder got broken, and then you just have I don't know what's on these, and eventually got them transcribed and played them. And there's an hour footage of one of the nights that my friends put on. And you can kind of date it because we're still using vinyl, but there's a CDJ there. And the
Yeah.
CDJ 1000, which is the different in form factor, came out in 2001. So I know, and then I went traveling in 2002 and lost my camcorder. So I know, you can date it by the equipment. And there's like camcorder of me like shooting, and they've got like 2 turntables and a CDJ, and they're like putting a vinyl on, and they're like cleaning it off and like putting the needle on, and then it scans to the club. And everyone's just facing each other, dancing, talking, drinking. Like every now and again, someone comes up and fist bumps the DJ. They clearly know them. They're clearly friends
Yeah.
with them. But that was, and then I wander around the whole club, and there's like 2 other rooms with DJs in it as well. It's the same vibe in each room. The DJ is just providing this vibe.
Yeah, and I think you kind of get a sense of that more like if you see video footage from like Studio 54, like any of the big cities back in the in the kind of the late disco early house days, you get the vibe that it's more about the scene. You've got these
Yeah.
famous DJs, Larry Levon and so on, but like when you see the videos, it's not like people are just standing staring at them. They're like, yeah, doing their thing. And you also get a sense that like the clubs, I remember I was watching a documentary about this like dancer in Ibiza. Can't remember his name. You probably saw this documentary on YouTube. And he was, he used to dance at all the clubs. And I think that was the thing. Like clubs cared about the whole experience back then, right? It wasn't, and I remember going to clubs when I was a kid and they'd have go-go dancers and like, yeah, it'd be like theater, right? Like in a sense. And it has changed. There's very few places that have that, have that, have that, have that like we're gonna jam you in a room. All the lights are facing the stage. The stage is your entertainment. You face the stage, yeah, it definitely feels different.
How do you think that's changed in the last like 5 to 10 years? And I'm going to quote David Guetta on a podcast, and he said something like, there's 2 types of performances now. There is now a DJ as an artist doing a show, pyrotechnics, everything's got to be seamless. It's like this cinematic event. And then there's DJing in a club week in, week out? And do we blur those lines? And yeah, how has that scene evolved in the last 5 to 10 years? Because I don't remember that being a thing in the 90s. What's your thoughts?
That's a great question. It's funny. I just saw I saw a response to a post on Instagram. I don't recall who posted the original post, but it was something like, you know, it was something about an event that had a no camera rule and how great that was from one DJ. And then responding to it was this label owner and DJ I really respect, Capote. The label is Toy Tonics. They do some just incredible, put out some incredible music, but they also produce their own shows like Toy Tonics Jams. And his response was, we don't worry about that. Like the people that come to the Toy Tonics Jams, you don't see them with their phones out because they're there for the music. And it definitely to me begs the question of like, is this challenge of like the use of phones and that kind of like show aspect of a DJ presentation more about certain promoters and clubs? Is it a different ethos more than anything? I think Capote's comment really makes me wonder like maybe it really is more about the producer, the promoter, the label than it is about a more kind of systemic issue. Because if they're seeing that engaged with the music and not engaged with the sense of community, then maybe it's maybe that sweet idyllic thing that we long for is still there, but we're just going to the wrong shows. I guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering, right? Yeah.
No, I like that thought actually. If you think about what is it like EDM, or I'll call it house because that's
Yeah.
what I know it as,
Yeah.
is the fastest growing genre over the last 25 years. I think it's the most popular stream genre on streaming services. So that means that there are hundreds of thousands of more people engaging in house music. So are there still, say, the 1 million people who like going to the clubs that we're talking about, no phones, just getting lost in the music. Those things are still happening. There's now just another 3 million people who like going to the show and the concert and seeing the thing, but they don't like indie and they don't like hip hop and bands and those kind of things, but they still want to watch and be entertained. So they go to those things. Those are the things that end up on social media. And that's the bias that we see. And then people think, well, that's house music, that's clubbing. It's just a section of it that is more visible and more shared.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think for me the question slash slight sense of anxiety is around society's common pattern of just following the money, and I worry that we lose something in that process. You know, if the club owners just see that style of presentation as the way to generate more, you know, get more butts in the club and generate more revenue, do they give up or, you know, under finance the more yeah, the more authentic, potentially more authentic, or the more less theatrical, I guess, the less
Music
theatrical event.
theorist?
Yeah, I don't know, something like that.
Could it be that the sharing and the show creates social media, creates free advertising?
Yeah, 100%.
Whereas the other version, you have to put a little bit more hard work into the advertising yourself because you're really not relying on it being a viral advert.
Yeah, there's something to it. I don't know, but there's also the tension of like, you know, at least from afar on social media, you would see that maybe there's a trend towards like day parties, parties in coffee shops, parties that are alcohol and drug free. But it's interesting because I see those shows. So you're kind of like, at least for me, I'm under the impression that there's a movement away from the big clubs, and one might say that movement is away from that idea of like entertainment, you know, audience facing DJ kind of experiences and to something more authentic. And yet I'm seeing that on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. So maybe it suffers from the same issue of like it's really about free advertising. I don't know. Are those events more authentic or do they just look different and new to us that they suffer from the exact same like we're here just to get great video footage of ourselves partying
Yeah, I mean,
thing? I don't know.
I did a, I think, controversial post that's currently sitting at 350,000 views on TikTok,
Ooh,
and a lot of about no phones in clubs. And one of the arguments is, do they not want free advertising? I mean, maybe they do. Maybe that's the whole reason for all of these things, and that's the reason. But then you get like Michael Beebe doing the DC-10 no phone vibe. He shoots a couple of footages from the DJ booth showing you the difference in vibe, and people still go because they're going for something else. They're not going for the shot.
yeah. I think it's more about people. I mean, you know, it could be age too. I'm not sure, but I can't think of the last show that I went to where I pulled out my phone. For example, I DJ'd on Halloween, and there was that promoter. They're local here, and they do amazing parties. And that party is probably one of the best parties they've ever done, according to everybody. You know, honestly, yeah, there's some obviously there's some shots from the night they hire a photographer to come and so on, but like I don't think I pulled up my phone once that night just because the energy and the vibes were so good. And I didn't see a lot of people pulling out their phones. And so, yeah, I keep circling back to is it really about, you know, the community of people that you're bringing out? And yeah, maybe when that crosses a chasm from being like your community, the community, into something far more scaled, it just enters you know, enters the kind of entertainment zone where people are more there, you know, they're as much there for like you know, that kind of like live broadcasting stuff as they are for the experience. I don't know. I'm not sure. Is it a size thing? Could be.
Be
Yeah.
what? Just to change subject a little bit because we like talking about other things. What do you struggle with in the studio? Like when you go in the studio, is there things that you know you're gonna struggle with, or
That's a great question. Lately, actually, what I've struggled with lately is I have a project on the go for some friends where I'm helping them compose a piece and it's in 3/4 time. And I am really,
oh
you know, an electronic
no,
music person. Like I'm just not familiar with 3/4.
is that a thing? Is there
It's a
anything
thing.
other than 4/4?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. I guess a lot of old hymnal music. I guess they call it as 3/4,
Yeah,
6/8. So yeah, we were sitting here and I was like trying to like figure out, I'm like, why are these changes happening at these odd bars? And I looked at my friend, I'm like, does this feel like a waltz to you? Kind of like a tut 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 tut. And she was like, kind of. And I was like, Googled, is this actually in 3/4? And I was like, yeah. So yeah, that, I mean, so yeah, my own, I guess backing up, I'd say my own slate, probably like many people, lack of formal music education. I didn't study music in school. And so, I mean, I had a piano teacher and guitar teacher, but I didn't study formally and train classically or anything. So, I feel like I hit the limits of my own ignorance pretty regularly in the studio. But for me, that's half the fun. I mean, I just accept it for what it is and try and lots of resources now to get through that. And that's like one of the few places where I'm excited about AI in the studio, honestly, is like it just helps fill in my own knowledge gaps faster than I could do if I was like hunting and pecking through
And
various
ask it a quick
searches.
question. It'll give
Yeah.
you the knowledge to,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just like this is how you need to think about it. This is what you need to do in your dot to adjust the grid, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean that's it. And then I think the biggest challenge probably for all DJs is just like lack of time. I long for a day where I don't have a project to work on and I could just come in here and noodle. Like I
yeah.
really long for that. Most of my gear's like covered up with like dust cases because it's rare that I'm able to just sit here and like muck about for a day. That would be, for me, that's like the dream, is just to have a couple of days where I could just like noise. How about
And
you?
how do you think you struggle with finishing, and how do you know when something's done?
I think I probably err on the side of like good enough is better than perfect, and I think things are done pretty early in the process where I feel like a lot of other people swing the other way. I'm about finishing, came when you and I met, I think I just finished this program called Finish More Music, the UK
Yeah,
guy.
I know him.
Yeah, and the philosophy there is just like you're not going to get better unless you finish. And so it's just like get it out the door. And I think that can be a superpower. It can also be an Achilles heel, but when working with other people, I found that the biggest challenge most artists, singer-songwriters that I meet and work with have is finishing. They will happily work and rework a song for years. And so when we work together, I'm like, no, no, this has got to be done in like 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm not interested.
Yeah,
I can't sit on it for that long. And so, one of the kudos that I got a couple of years back was like, in written kind of endorsement was like, I wouldn't have finished this without Philip. And so I think, yeah, for me that I've
that's
tried to turn that
kudos.
into a superpower. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, because like I agree with that. When I started 9 months ago to just say I'm going to release a track a month, it's always the first Friday of the month, and I have to have one in the queue. It has to be published,
Smart.
and that's just what I'm doing. And so now, I've got 2 tracks now scheduled, but sometimes it's been like I've had like 4 days until, and I've had to rush it through the distro to get it published on that date. But what you learn in those finishing steps makes you faster. Learning, when you send it to a mastering engineer and they give you the feedback and then you have to rework it a little bit, or knowing that you need certain things to get to the finish line. What's the cover going to look like? What can it have on the cover? What do the different platforms allow you to release versus not release? Like, can you have your label name on there? All of these things that you just get to, and now I just know what they are. And
Yep. I think that probably gives you, I'm curious if it does give you this. I guess maybe I should ask as a question. Does that give you a more nuanced sense of what done means? Because I feel like many artists just don't, they've finished so infrequently that they don't actually know that like finishing the song is maybe only like 50% of done.
what I learned when I released with labels, that's when I learned that step. So I've released with like 5 or 6 labels now. And the first one was the hardest because they were like, okay, I need them mastered. I need them, roughly this many luffs. I need the radio edit. And then some people were like, I need the radio edit. I need the extended edit. I need the instrumental, and I need the a cappella. And I need them all mixed and mastered in a certain bit depth and whatever, you know, all those things. And then they're like, and I need the cover, and then I need a press shot, some bios, and like, so it comes as a kit. And then when you've done that like 5 times, you're like, okay, I know what those things are. And then you need reels, posts, stories, content, how-to video. All of those things just become the 2 to 3 weeks around your release that you need to be doing. Because the label is going to be asking you, okay, the track's going out, are you going to push it on your socials? So you need a post, a story, a reel. Afterwards, you need deep dive. People care. People actually want to see like how you made your song, what the kick drums, the synths, like some people. And so knowing that all of that encompasses, it is not just a pre-master, a DJ edit pre-master. No,
Well,
that's
yeah, it's
not
interesting you
done.
mentioned that. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday with an artist that I really respect, not in the electronic genre, but in the more like, pop, I think kind of melodic rap pop genre, named Nick D. Do you remember Nick D? Have you heard of Nick D? So Nick D has no record label. He's exclusively indie released, and he's got over 1 billion streams. And a lot of his theory of how he succeeded, and he's like written a book about it, and he talks very openly about it. There's not by any means secrets. Follows the playbook of this melodic rap artist named Russ that I started getting into in terms of like listening to interviews with him. And Russ kind of pioneered the idea of like a release a week. That's how Russ went from, you know, you know, you know, success. And so Nick D had kind of really consumed Russ's theories and implemented them himself. And I think the difference that I find, like when I hear that, because they often talk about, it's about obviously getting the music out, but then it's about creating all this. You see, basically, Nick said, I quote, like, you're better off thinking what would make great content on Instagram and Instagram and TikTok, and then write the song. He's like, don't write the song and try and figure out the content. He's like, figure out the content and then write the song. And his example was like, I don't know if he actually did the song, but he's like, I know I can juggle lemons. I know that would be good content. Somebody seeing me trying to juggle lemons. So he's like, I'm going to write a song about lemons. And for me, that was like, wow, this is a real perspective shift. And I'm not sure Russ would have said the same thing because I don't think Russ is as strong on content. But Nick D's like, his Instagram and TikTok are just bonkers huge. And he's helped a whole ton of other artists kind of figure this out. I think that's a really important perspective shift. I think where it's challenging for electronic artists, and this is where I have a problem translating it. I'm curious what you're having success with is if you are a singer songwriter, like what Nick D does, it's like his videos are just him with some kind of a hook and then leading into singing the song. So it's like juggling the lemons. Oh, drop the lemons. Oh, and he starts singing about dropping lemons.
Yeah.
It's like a natural transition from like a hook into I'm singing the song. He doesn't even mention like go stream my song. He waits. His whole strategy is he waits for somebody in the comments to be like, "Whoa, can I listen to this full song somewhere?" And then he will pin the comment and reply to it
Yeah.
and say, "Oh yeah, this is the name. It's on Spotify." But I think to your point, like, what do we do as EDM or electronic music artists that's similar? Because while some people, as you say, are interested in knowing what kick we used and what synth we used, my sense is that the larger audience is not. And so I'm like, what is the content for real listeners? That's not me talking through what I did in the DAW. Like, how can they experience a bit of content that's like a music video?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on all
I
that?
genuinely think that's hard. Like, if I could sing the song, if I was singing the song, and I try, 'cause I'm not a very good singer, and I wish I could, I think that would be more meaningful. I start off, a cappella, and then it all comes in. You're like, oh, okay, I see, this is the person singing, but it's not that. The closest I can get to that is sharing the musiversal clip of the singer singing the song with me, and then you go into the song. But that's kind of a how-to. It's how I created it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Trying to get footage that tells the story, but that is really hard making music videos. Like I've
Yeah.
done that, and occasionally I've found like I had this song called First Dollar, and I found some stock footage of some guy actually pulling a dollar out of his hand, and then had all these other versions. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect, but very rarely happens.
Right.
Or how much can you use like VO3 by Google and like prompt the videos to be those things, but there's continuity errors and missing fingers, and like, so it's really difficult to say, how do I tell that story without being a guitar singer songwriter when you write EDM music, and I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what is the content that's worked well for you, like in terms of promoting your music?
I usually do little clips of like what the main story is in some reel, and it's usually inside a CD. People still knows what CDs are, but like, and then you can download it. Usually the ones with the singers, that works pretty well. The content that's been doing well is while we're doing this is people like to hear people naturally talking. I think the algorithms are prioritizing actual humans
Mm.
versus, these AI heads that talk.
This is not the real Philip.
Someone on one of my videos said, "I think this is AI," and I'm like, "Oh my god, really? Really? You think these glasses are AI?" I don't know. Uh, um, I often talk about what my songs are about. Why did I write them? I think I saw somebody say, "You just don't know what the piece of content is that's going to hit. So you've just got to keep doing content. Even if you're out, it's on your shitty phone, just record it, upload it. If it's 10 seconds, 50 seconds, if it's a minute, you don't know which one's going to hit. There's no system."
Yeah, and to that point, what they said in this interview was like, if worst case scenario, it flops, which means nobody saw it. So no big deal. It's like there's no risk of embarrassment. What's that?
How has connecting with session musicians from around the world changed your production?
I mean, I think I'm stating the obvious by saying it's improved this overall sonic quality because it's got life and there's real musicians playing parts in ways that I just can't. But the real improvement is that I've learned that good musicianship on a weak idea doesn't make the idea good. So definitely it's pushed me to spend more time ensuring I know what the idea is before the session so that when I go in, I can get them to do fewer parts, but like the right parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, how about you?
Having
I
skill
know
and
you're working with a lot of session musicians. What have you figured out?
I feel like jamming with musicians is just the best part of my day. I often tell them, I don't care if we have anything at the end of this session. I just want to like relieve their pressure of like, I'm expecting a score from, I'm not. I'm expecting that maybe we'll gel, maybe we'll vibe, maybe the song will vibe with you, maybe it won't. There's some songs that that not very many, but I've been on my fourth singer. Just it didn't land, and that's okay. And the amount of songs I've got on my hard drive that I think won't see the light of day, that's okay too. Because the best bit is just how I'm often trying to work out how I give them the best chance of being amazing. And the first time you work with someone, you don't know what that is.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like to your point, you're working out how you come more prepared, how you for that person. And sometimes that's different. And then the more you work with somebody, you sometimes don't even have to turn up. You can be on a plane somewhere flying over and you're like, give me this. And you land and you listen, you're like, oh wow, you
Yeah.
nailed that.
Well, I mean that, and it also depends on the musician. Like, but you're right. Like the last two sessions I had with Philippe, like I had that studio booking, so I couldn't attend, and I wrote him a note. I'm like, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to be there. But this is specifically what I want you to do, and I had MIDI parts in. And I'm like, I know you can make these MIDI parts better, and yeah, he knocked it out of the park. But yeah, you're right. It probably comes from he and I working with each other, he and I having that comfort, and like him trusting me, and vice versa. So yeah. Yeah, it's amazing when you find that. I find that having people in the studio now, like physically having a space where I can, my friend Holland came in. He came in last week. He's going to come in again this Saturday, but and just played me a bunch of songs that he's working on. I just love it. He's just there playing on the guitar. I can just start hitting the keys, putting some chords underneath. I, could grab a bass and play along with him. There's just something really, yeah, really earthy and fun about that. Yeah.
So thank you for joining me as joining each other for a first kind of podcast kick of the can.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
dude.
Hopefully we can do another one and tune in again.
Hell yeah.